Hello, Mush, live across the world for a Tuesday morning. This is the Voice of Reason. And there's a man called James Whale who used to be good on the radio. He used to be engaging and talented and full of beans and life. What is he now? He's a man who calls people who want to stop immigrants risking their lives crossing the channel with undeniable footage conspiracists. He's a man who mocks people who are trying to do real journalism and hold people to account like Prickstick Patel, who seemingly says a lot but does nothing to protect them from themselves. This is a man who's all about himself, really, isn't he? He doesn't really care about you. He's another millionaire who works for Murdoch at one of the biggest failing radio stations in the country, who just unfortunately has a very small audience, much smaller than mine. In fact, last night when I saw him on YouTube, he'd got some 500 viewers. We're lucky if less than 5,000 people view my programme live within the first few minutes. How did James Whale manage to lose the plot? When did he become one of them? And why is talk radio now so sanctimonious and boring? Have they had a bollocking from Ofcom or their clueless bosses who seemingly hire people who might have once been on I'm a Celebrity, but unfortunately have no popularity? Howdy much. What happened to James Whale? I remember in the 90s everybody saying, you've got to listen to this guy. I realised then he was all about the shtick and the ranting and the raving. He's basically a pantomime dame. He comes up with a subject and then thinks of a thing to be outraged about and then gobshites about it. He'll take a caller on air who has undeniable proof that 100 immigrants came in on a boat last week. Here's the video. His name is Liam T. He's actually a caller to my programme who is fighting to protect people down in Folkestone, an area where, by the way, James lives. He couldn't care less. Why? Because he's not one of us. He lives in a millionaire's palace in the middle of a field in a forest, and he doesn't have to worry about what we have to worry about, living in real places like, well, former pit estates here in Nottingham, for example.
The people are coming in without going through customs right now, you're saying, Liam?
But like we go down and we film all of the you know where the Kent variant, you know where that's come. It's come from things. So we've got like YouTube channels such as like Steve Law's Actors Patriot, all of those lot. We actually film it and put it up because the mainstream media don't want anybody to know this.
Oh, hang on, Liam. I misunderstood you. I'm so sorry. I misunderstood you. I thought you were, you worked in the sort of you worked on the ports or something. You're just one of these conspiracy theory people who've got your own YouTube channel and try and put your point across. Thank you, Liam. Very nice to talk to you. Good night. We'll take a break.
It's disappointing to me that someone like James could have lost himself. We always knew that he was doing a show and all that fake ranting with that big fella, the morbidly obese man with the beard. You know, it's good for shtick for about 5 minutes, but the reason he hasn't got long-term listeners, the reason he hasn't got longevity on air and he hasn't got a consistent audience that's, well, tiny compared to mine, is because you know he's faking it. You know he's not sincere. You know he's doing these fake blusters at the beginning of the programme and, of course, runs out of energy within about 5 minutes. You've heard it all by 6:10 or whatever time this young man comes on air. I find it really offensive that he would call somebody who's got facts a conspiracist. And you know, what they're doing is very damaging, these people at Talk Radio, pretending to be something they're not to profit, then taking an audience and completely humiliating them, even though they've got facts, cutting them off without any right of reply because he's a coward. I mean, he would never, for example, engage with me on here. I challenge him, if you want to have a debate, James, if you'll be willing to be real and drop the shtick and actually be you, maybe you could have a real conversation instead of trying to think on your feet of what you should think. You remind me of those people who dress up for a living as women. You know, they're constantly trying to say things like, oh yeah, I'm wearing a dress today. Look, I'm a lady. It's cool today, so I thought I'd wear a long dress, not a short, because you're trying to think, you know, like the drag queens, of what a woman would say. You know, drag queens don't know, because they're men, how women think, so they're acting the part of women, like you're acting the part of Mr. Outraged instead of actually being outraged. You're not outraged because you've always earned too much money. You've now become one of them. You are indeed a lefty who doesn't have the fight in you anymore. You haven't got that furnace burning under you because you live the millionaire lifestyle, working for the biggest global media company in the world and on a failing radio station, so you've lost your arrogance. It's chipping away at you, like with Mike Graham, that big fat pig. James, if I give you any advice, when people call you on that radio station and you want to take the piss out of them, make sure you do it to the right caller. Don't do it to people who have actually got facts. Don't do it to people who have actually got video. And don't do it to people who are actually trying to save the lives of immigrants coming here from France. That's their only hope. Their only hope, unlike you, is to stop them drowning in the Channel. But of course, you don't care, because whilst they're drowning in the Channel in Folkestone because they're so exhausted by the point they've got to Dover, you're sipping Chardonnay in your palace in Kent. Speaks volumes, James. What a disappointment you are.